Hi there, this is Teacher Monique, and we will be discussing the different angle pairs. In our previous lesson, we have learned that coplanar angles are angles that lie on the same plane. And we have also learned that an angle is formed when there are two non-collinear rays that have a common endpoint. And the two rays are the legs of an angle or the sides of an angle. So this time, we will be discussing the different angle pairs. First, we have the adjacent angles. So, two angles that are coplanar have a common vertex and a common side but have no common interior points. In this figure, angle ABD and angle CBD are adjacent angles. They share a common side, and that is ray BD, and a common vertex, which is point B. In this figure, angle ADB and angle BDC share a common vertex of D, and they also have a common side of DB, or ray DB. Next, we have the complementary angles. So these are two angles whose sum of their measures is 90 degrees. So we have here an example of a complementary angles. So these two angles, the angle 1 measures 30 degrees and angle 2 measures 60 degrees. So we are going to add the measures of the two angles, 30 degrees plus 60 degrees, and that is equal to 90 degrees. So these two angles are said to be complementary angles. Another one, we have here two angles. Angle 1 measures 65 degrees and angle 2 measures 25 degrees. If we are going to add the measures of the two angles, 25 degrees plus 65 degrees, that is equal to 90 degrees. Therefore, these two angles are said to be complementary angles. This figure shows complementary angles. Two angles that shared a common endpoint and a common side. But take note, only one angle has given a value, and that is 73 degrees. Now, how are we going to find for the measure of angle X? Remember that complementary angles are two angles whose sum of their measures is 90 degrees. Therefore, in finding the measure of angle X, you are going to subtract 73 degrees from 90 degrees, and that is 17 degrees. Next, we have here two angles shared a common endpoint and shared a common side. One angle measures 62 degrees. How are we going to find for the measure of angle X? Again, we are going to subtract 62 degrees from 90 degrees, and that is 28 degrees. Angle X here measures 28 degrees. So the two angles here are said to be complementary angles. Next, we have the supplementary angles. So these are two angles whose sum of their measures is 180 degrees. So here, the two angles shared a common endpoint, and they also shared a common side. So the measure of the first angle here is 60 degrees, and the other angle is 120 degrees. So the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. Therefore, these two angles are supplementary angles. Another example here, angle BOA and angle COA. So these two angles shared a common vertex, and that is at point O. And they also share a common side, and that is the ray OA. So angle AOC measures 60 degrees, and angle AOB measures 120 degrees. If you are going to add the measures of their angles, that is equal to 180 degrees. Therefore, these two angles, angle BOA and angle COA, are said to be supplementary angles. Another one here, the two angles, one measures 80 degrees and the other one measures 100 degrees. So add it up, that is 180 degrees. Therefore, this is as supplementary angles. Now, let's try to find out the measure of angle X. If angle 1 measures 118 degrees, what do you think is the measure of angle X? How are we going to find for the measure of angle X? Remember that supplementary angles are two angles whose sum of their measures is 180 degrees. Therefore, we are going to subtract the measure of angle 1, which is 118 degrees, from 180 degrees, and that is 62 degrees. So the two angles now are said to be supplementary angles because the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. Next, we have angle SRT and angle QRT. These two angles are supplementary angles, but only one angle here has given the measure, and that is 45 degrees. So, angle TRS or angle SRT measures 45 degrees. So, you are going to subtract 45 degrees from 180 degrees in order to find the measure of angle QRT, and that is 135 degrees. Finding the sum, 135 degrees plus 45 degrees, that is equal to 180 degrees. Therefore, angles QRT and TRS are said to be supplementary angles. Next, we have linear pair. So these are two angles which are both adjacent and supplementary. So in this figure, angles AOB and angle COB are said to be linear pair. They are both adjacent because they share the common endpoint and a common side. And they are also supplementary angles because the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. Angle BOC measures 140 degrees and angle AOB measures 40 degrees. So, the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. They are supplementary, and at the same time, they are both adjacent. Therefore, these two angles are linear pair. Linear pair are two adjacent angles that create a line. So we have there the examples. Angle 1 that measures 61 degrees and angle 2 that measures 119 degrees. The two angles there are both adjacent and supplementary because the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. In the second example, these are also linear pairs. The two angles that are both adjacent and supplementary. 145 degrees and the other angle measures 35 degrees. So we have 180 degrees. And these two angles are said to be linear pairs. Now let's determine whether the given figures are linear pairs or not. So in the figure 1, these are linear pairs. Angle YOZ and angle XOZ are linear pairs because there are two angles, both adjacent and supplementary. Adjacent in the sense that they share a common vertex at O and a common side at OZ. So this is a linear pair. Figure 2 is not linear pairs. Why? Because there are already three angles involved. Remember that in linear pairs, there are only two angles involved. So figure 2 is not an example of linear pairs. Next we have vertical angles. So these angles are opposite angles formed when two lines intersect. Vertical angles are said to be congruent angles. So in this example, two lines intersect with each other. There are four angles formed. So in this figure, it shows that angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical angles. Next we have angle A and angle B are also vertical angles. Vertical angles are pairs of opposite angles made by intersecting lines. Vertical angle theorem says that if two angles are vertical, then they are congruent. When we say congruent, the measure of their angles are equal. Now let us see this figure. So we have two intersecting lines and there are four angles formed. So we have angle A, angle C, angle B, and angle D. Angle A and angle B are opposite angles. They have the same measures. Therefore, angle A and angle B are vertical angles. They are also congruent angles. Another vertical angles are angle C and angle D because these two angles are also opposite angles and are congruent angles. Next we have this figure. We have here four angles formed when two lines there are intersecting with each other. So we have angle AED, angle DEB, angle BEC, and angle CEA. So let's find out which of these are vertical angles. Angle AEC is congruent to angle DEB. So angle AEC measures 54 degrees and angle DEB also measures 54 degrees. They are congruent angles. And they are also opposite angles. Therefore, these two angles are said to be vertical angles. Another one, we have angle AED and angle CEB. These two angles are congruent angles because they have the same measure, and that is 126 degrees. And they are also opposite angles. Therefore, angle AED and angle CEB are also vertical angles. Now, examine this figure. We have two intersecting lines, there are four angles formed. So there are two vertical angles there that measures 40 degrees each. So how are we going to find for the measure of the two remaining angles? So angle 1, we have 140 degrees, and the other angle is also 140 degrees because they are opposite angles. They are vertical angles. Therefore, they should have the same measure. Now let us examine the figure. In this figure, there are four angles formed when two lines there intersect with each other. But take note, only one angle has given a measure, and that is 76 degrees. Now, how are we going to find the measure of the three angles? Remember, the opposite angle of the 76-degree angle is angle Y. Therefore, angle Y and the 76-degree angle are said to be vertical angles. And vertical angles are congruent angles. When we say congruent, they have the same measure. Therefore, angle Y should also have a 76-degree measure. Next, we're going to find the value or the measure of angle X. Look at angle X and angle Y. They are linear pairs. They are both adjacent and supplementary. So when we say supplementary, the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. Therefore, to find the measure of angle X, you are going to subtract 76 degrees from 180 degrees, and that is 104 degrees. Angle X measures 104 degrees. Now, what is the measure of angle Z? Angle X and angle Z are opposite angles. Therefore, they are vertical angles. Again, vertical angles are congruent angles. They should have the same measure. Therefore, if angle X is 104 degrees, angle Z should also have a measure of 104 degrees. Okay, now you are given here an activity for you to enhance your learning. So the instruction says that you are going to use the given figure to identify the following. Number 1, you're going to find the sides of angle YVW. Number 2, you are going to identify the sides of angle XVY. Number 3, identify the angle or angles adjacent to angle ZVW. And number 4, you're going to identify the angle or angles adjacent to angle XVZ. Number 5, identify the angle or angles adjacent to angle YVZ. Number 6, identify the side common to angle XVY and angle YVZ. Number 7, identify the side common to angle XVZ and angle ZVW. Number 8, identify the side common to angle XVZ and angle ZVY. Number 9, identify the side common to angle XVY and angle YVW. And number 10, you are going to identify the common vertex. Okay? So, thank you for watching and continue to learn at home and hope you have learned a lot from this lesson. Watch for more videos.